Hey everyone, Dr. Jenny Sue here. Thanks for joining me today. I want to share a lesson plan with you that I know, I say this all the time, is again one of my favorites, but it really is. I love to use this lesson with young children, kindergarten, first grade. It's a great way to introduce observations and physical properties. Now, down below in the comment section, I'm going to link to the article that was written. And so, shout out to my friend Liesel Rockenbach for helping me with this article. In fact, the pictures that you see in the article are from her classroom because she actually did this lesson in her classroom with her kindergarten students, and they loved it. So, I wanted to share this with you today. Now, this is going to be a really, really quick video, not really long, but I will have some pictures later towards the end that'll just kind of show you the setup of how you set this up. So you're going to need a couple of raw eggs. Yes, I said raw. So not boiled, but just raw. And what you're going to do now, this is a lesson that you can't just pull out the night before. You got to set this up because this is going to take about 24 to 48 hours to prep. So you're going to need some distilled vinegar. White vinegar is fine. And you just need a container. And you're going to take those eggs and you're going to soak them for a minimum of 24 hours, maximum 48. And so you're going to just soak them. Don't put any lids on top of your containers because there's a reaction that happens while the vinegar is doing its thing to change the egg. And if you leave that lid on the container, you'll hear this pop and it might fly off depending on how much pressure has built up from the gas. So don't put any lids on. So yeah, you're just going to soak these in vinegar. And as you'll see in the pictures in just a second, I'll explain to you what happens when you soak it in vinegar. But after you take it out of vinegar, this, if you've never done this, is what it looks like. Isn't this awesome? So like I have to be really careful that I don't squeeze this too hard and get all of the gook on my computer. But isn't this just fascinating, right? So check this out. So there's still a little bit of the shell on the egg. Yeah, this is still an egg, guys. This is an egg. This is what happens. We've actually pickled it, rubberized it, right? So it's squishy. So, but here's what you want to do. When you introduce this to your budding scientist, you don't want to tell them it's an egg. The whole purpose of this is to build mystery and intrigue because you're fueling you're priming their curiosity of what actually happened with this object. And that's what I call it. So kiddos come in, I welcome them to science time, and I say to them, boys and girls, I want us to be scientists today and make observations of an object. And of course they're like, yeah, you can have them put on their goggles in case one of them, squeezes a little too hard and it gets all over them. If you have some aprons, you can actually have the kiddos put on aprons, to just protect their clothing. But you're just going to introduce them to this object. And what you're just going to do is you're just going to have them make observations. So we're going to use our senses and we're going to use words to describe what we see. So I'm going to use my sense of sight, my eyes, and I'm going to come up with words that describe what I see. So what color is it? So color is a physical property. It's a word. It's something that describes that object. So the physical property of color, what color is it? What shape? So the physical property of shape, what shape is the object? And then I can have them describe what's on the outside, right? And they're like, ooh. Of course, we can also teach our students to waft. So wafting is where I push the air like a cook towards my nose. So my nose helps me to smell. And I'm detecting a very distinct odor. Now, this is where your kiddos might say, oh, that smells like when we do Easter eggs in my house. And so that'll give you a little bit of indication if your students have had some prior experience with eggs and vinegar, and especially around Easter time. So we can smell it, and then the students can touch it. So you want to make sure for safety purposes that you don't have any egg allergies in your classroom. So do that before you even start this. But yeah, they can actually touch it and just have them be really gentle. The way we did it in Liesel's classroom is we put them in little plastic containers and we had the students just touch from the top. And we told them to be really, really gentle. Now, later on, we did squeeze the object to see what happened. So we applied a force. So that was quite fun. But for right now, we just had them very gently touch it. And so they may say it's slimy, it's wet, it's squishy. They may say, ooh, it feels gross, which is always great, right? And then we listen to our eggs. Nothing. No sound. So you go through that. Now, of course, we don't taste. We do not want to taste these eggs. So we're not going to be using our sense of taste. And in the comments below, I'll also link to the lesson plan if you are interested. You're more than welcome to go get it. There is a recording sheet that you can create an anchor chart to have the students do their observations of their senses. So you have them just make observations, and then you tell them, okay, so now we've made this great observation of this object. And this is a perfect opportunity for you to actually now introduce to them what this object is. And you can do that by having students do a compare and a contrast. So using a double bubble graphic organizer or a box and T chart. I tend to not like Venn diagrams for younger grades, but you could use a Venn diagram if that's something. But I love box and T, where the box is everything is the same and the T chart is where everything is different. So now you introduce to them this object and this object, and you have them make comparisons. So how are they the same? Do they have the same shape? Are they the same size? Do they have the same color? And then what's different about them? And so your students can go through and make observations. And then you can say to them, this is what? This is an egg. This is also an egg, minus the shell. But look at the size difference in the two of them. Kids are fascinated by it. And of course they're like, well, how did you do that? How did you do that? And at the end, you can tell them. Now, once you've gone through and compared and contrasted your two objects, then we want to introduce to how do scientists in our world actually define eggs. And so we have a whole section of scientists called ornithologists that study birds, and they study their eggs. And one of my favorite books, I know I have many favorite books besides my lessons, is An Egg is Quiet by Deanna Aston, and it's illustrated by Sylvia Long. Probably one of the most realistic science, real fiction, I guess, where she goes through and just shows you all these different, and you'll see all these different eggs found in nature. She has a whole series. A Seed is Sleepy, and then I think she also has a butterfly book as well. One of my favorite children's author. So An Egg is Quiet, but look at the pages of this. Look at the beautiful, artistic, just all the different, and these are real eggs that your students could find in nature if they went out. And so what's really cool is, of course, we know just some eggs, we see in our bird nests. And so it might be cool to kind of go around your schoolyard and see if you find any bird's nests, but don't disturb them, right? Because if you touch the eggs, then the mother may not come back. An egg is quiet. So again, lots of great information that you can tie it to physical property. It sits there under its mother's feathers, on top of its father's feet, buried beneath the sand, warm and cozy. An egg is colorful. And so look at all of these different eggs that we see in nature. Now, we probably are very familiar with, let me see if I can get my finger here on this one. I'm trying to do this upside down. The American robin, blue, right? The American robin's egg. But we've got a turkey egg right here. We've got just some all different kinds of one. Here's a field cricket egg. Look how small that is. It looks like a little teeny banana, but it's not. It's an egg. An egg is shapely. And so these are all the different eggs that we can find in nature. Now this one here, there's tubular eggs, right? Your kids will love to say that. This is actually, while most sharks give birth to live young, some sharks lay like the lesser spotted dogfish, begin life in a leathery egg case with tendrils. So there's also some different types of eggs in here beyond just birds and things like that. But she goes through and goes to the shape, so the physical property of shape. And then she shows you how an egg can be camouflaged, right? So looking at this picture here, where do we find the egg in the picture? And the students would have to go and find the egg right there. Size is another physical property, and so does a great job of showing you an ostrich egg, and there's a ruler at the top that you can actually have your students measure with. You can also take, paper clips and lay them across, and then lay the paper clips up here, and you could really see how big that ostrich egg is. And then this over here is the tiny hummingbird egg, which is the size of a jelly bean. So bring in a little jelly bean and let your kids see that that's the size of a hummingbird egg. How cool is that? And then an egg is artistic. So we look at all the different beautiful colors and patterns that are on eggs found in nature. And again, she's even got, here's some fish eggs. So again, going beyond just the birds. An egg is textured, so that physical property of texture. So gooey eggs, like amphibians, so frog eggs are gooey, and that keeps them from drying out. And then there's hard eggs, there's soft eggs, there's smooth eggs, there's rough eggs. So again, just a great way to bring in those physical properties. And then she also introduces students to fossilized eggs. And then of course, it wouldn't really be a great science book without showing you what comes from eggs. So what living things can come from eggs. And so again, and I love the way it ends, an egg is quiet. Then suddenly, what do you think's gonna happen? An egg is noisy, and it goes through and goes, cheep, peep, cheep, peep. How cute is that? So again, get this book, An Egg is Quiet. It's gonna be a great addition to your classroom library. All right, so let's talk about how you can take this activity. And of course, I love just simple science experiments, right? So activities to experiment. So how do we turn this into an experiment? Because we haven't really done anything except we've just described this object, which we now know to be an egg that has sat in vinegar. So you could actually show your students the process. You could take your raw egg and you can put it in vinegar right there in the classroom at the start of your day, and you can have the students make observations throughout the day. Again, I'm going to put up some pictures here in just a second to show you what it looks like, and I'll kind of talk you through what's happening. But you can do that in your classroom, and then when they come in the next day, they could then make observations. Lisa will tell you that the kiddos ran in the classroom the next morning because they wanted to see if this egg had indeed really turned into this egg. So it was just a great time filled with excitement and kids ready and eager to learn. So once you've put this into vinegar and you get the egg like this, now your budding scientists can look at, well, what happens if we change the liquid that this egg is put in? So I can put it in Coca-Cola. Would it do the same thing in Coca-Cola? I don't know. Try it. See. Now, what I can do that's kind of cool is I can take this egg and I can take some string and I can get the measurement of the circumference. So how big is it? So how full is it? And lay that string on a ruler and I can get the circumference of the egg. I can put this in a different liquid that's still clear like vinegar, but the consistency of the liquid is different, so it's thicker. So Karo syrup. When you put this little thing in Karo syrup, it shrivels down to nothing, like it gets smaller. And so the kids can actually see that, and you can measure it, and you can look at the change before and after. So the reason why it happens is once the shell is taken off the egg, so this is actually in 5th grade when we talk about cells, this is a great way to show students a cell membrane. So you actually pop this, you get rid of all of the yolk and everything and the vinegar that's inside of it, and that's the membrane. And so this membrane actually has holes in it, and that's what allows the vinegar, once it dissolves the shell off of it, it actually goes through and it fills up the egg. And you can see the vinegar when you pop it. You'll see the yolk, and then you'll see the other clear vinegar with the white and the yolk of the egg. So it's really cool. So again, just a really, really neat way to start your year off doing some exploration, and especially talking about physical property and using our senses to describe this object. So I hope you have a fantastic time doing science. I'm going to show you some pictures with the setup here in just a second. So enjoy doing science with your budding scientist. So literally, all you're going to do is you're going to put your eggs into a container filled with vinegar. As you see in the picture here, these eggs have already been sitting for a while. Now, all the stuff that you see around the egg, that is actually the shell of the egg being dissolved by the vinegar. It's a chemical reaction, so you get a gas produced with this setup. So again, you do not want to put your eggs into a container with the lid on it, or else that pressure is going to build up and that lid will go flying off and you will have a mess. So don't do that. So again, as you get towards the end of the 48 hours or even early on in 24 hours, you'll see that the shell has been dissolved. You may have to wipe some of it off, but again, you'll see that it's been dissolved. So you're just sticking raw eggs into vinegar, making sure they're completely covered by the vinegar 24 to 48 hours.